You and I were hoping that things were slightly crawling back to normal. The world over, people were wondering whether after a bruising year with the coronavirus, things were at least returning to a semblance of normalcy. Well, just around that time, a new strain of the coronavirus you've no doubt heard has exploded. It first emerged in the United Kingdom and is now reported to have spread to at least 5 other countries, possibly even in India. Well, India is taking no chances. It has stepped up surveillance. All passengers arriving from the UK are being tracked, and very strict protocols have been put in place to battle this new mutant strain of the coronavirus.
It's been a week since a new mutation of the coronavirus was revealed to be the reason for a rapid surge of infections in the United Kingdom. It's now being called B117, and it's considered 70% more infectious. Not just the UK, the mutant COVID strain is also being reported in Denmark, Australia, Netherlands, Italy and Gibraltar. As the threat of the new strain looms, India is on its highest alert. All flights to and from UK are already suspended, and those who have travelled from the country in the past 15 days are being tracked. The government of India is taking no chances. Surveillance is at an all-time high.
The Delhi government has also announced mandatory checks for all the passengers who've come in from the UK in the last 2 weeks. The government is now going to trace and test more than 6,000 people who may have come into India from the UK in the last 2 weeks.
Passengers who are coming from these places have to go through mandatory institutional quarantine. For that, BMC have booked over 250 hotels in and around airport.
One passenger who landed at Chennai via Delhi from London has tested positive for COVID-19 on 22nd of December. However, the State Health Department has mentioned that the passenger's sample has been sent to NIV Pune to confirm whether if it's of the mutated strain or not.
At least 2 states have also imposed the night curfew. After Maharashtra, Karnataka has put in curbs from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. in all districts. The night curfew will be implemented from tonight till the 2nd January.
It is decided to impose night curfew from today till 2nd January 2021 between 10 p.m. to 6 a.m.
India's active COVID cases have witnessed a decline. While nothing is being left to chance, the government has assured that there is no need to panic.
Based on our discussions, deep understanding of the data available, our discussions with scientists in UK, colleagues in WHO, and our own deep assessment, there is no cause for concern as panic.
For the world that has been battling the pandemic for nearly a year now, the coronavirus mutation has become not just a big cause of concern, but also raised a big question mark over life returning to normal soon. Bureau Report, India Today.
Now, these are the questions that I personally have, and I know there are millions across the world who have these very same questions that I want to ask, and I'm going to answer these for you. Could this new strain of the coronavirus manifest in India? Question 2. Will current vaccines, the ones that have already been approved and the ones that are in the pipeline, will these be effective against this new strain without any modifications? Is this new coronavirus strain more dangerous and contagious? Question 4, will months of work against the original coronavirus need to be replicated or repeated? Is it going to require even more work now? And finally, will the world possibly go into another lockdown as a result of it? It's early days yet as far as this mutated strain is concerned, but could the world be looking at some kind of a repeat lockdown? I'm very privileged to be joined today by an amazing panel of experts from around the world. We have with us Dr. S.K. Sareen, Director, Institute of Liver and Biliary Sciences. Professor Jeffrey L. Smith is a virologist, and Head of Department Pathology at the University of Cambridge. Dr. Sanjeev Krishna is Professor of Molecular Parasitology and Medicine at St. George's, London. Dr. Ashok Jainer is a consultant at Coventry and Warwickshire Partnership NHS Trust. Dr. Rajesh M. Parikh is Director Medical Research Centre from Mumbai at the Jaslok Hospital. Dr. Krishan Kumar is Clinical Professor of Pediatrics and Emergency Medicine at the New York College of Osteopathic Medicine from New York. Gentlemen, my privilege. Thank you very much to all of you for being with me here today. Dr. Parikh, I'd like to start with you. You're looking at how things are playing out here in India. We've seen the health ministry's word on this new strain. They've said there's no cause for panic. A question that's, I want to keep these questions as simple as possible because there's a great deal of interest in the professional answers we're going to get on the show today. But Dr. Parikh, most people are wondering, is this mutant strain possibly already in India?
It's improbable, in fact, that it would not be in India. I think the British have been very proactive in not just in detecting it, but in being completely transparent about it.
Yeah.
On the flip side, they get saddled with the label that it's a London mutant strain, which is unfortunate, but it gives the rest of the world a false sense of security. I would be astonished if it's not here already.
Okay, so you're saying it would be very surprising if it isn't here already. Professor Smith, a lot of proactive actions, in the United Kingdom once this mutant strain was discovered. What is your view, your assessment with the way things have been handled once this mutant strain was discovered in the UK, Professor Smith?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for your kind invitation to be part of this discussion.
Good to have you, sir.
And I was very pleased to hear that the number of cases in India and the number of fatalities are declining.
Yes.
And that's excellent. And together with the good news about the vaccine coming on, I think 2021 is going to be good news in terms of handling this pandemic. So this new strain is, it's another new strain, and there are new strains arising all the time. This is not the first time this has happened in this pandemic. There was a new strain that arose in Italy and then spread throughout most of Europe and became prevalent. So this is a repeat of what has been happening throughout the pandemic.
Right.
And the only reason that we know about it is because of the large amount of genome sequencing that's going on. And so that has, in fact, about 50% of all the genomes of this virus that have been sequenced have been done within the UK. And so naturally, new strains, as they arise, are going to be detected first where the genome sequencing is taking place. Now, having said that, this virus has clearly been around since September and growing in prevalence.
Yes.
And since there have not been travel bans between the first instance of it and today, it is quite possible that it will have transmitted to other countries. And we'll only know that by surveillance and sequencing within those other countries.
Dr. Sanjeev Krishna, to you, many of the lessons that have been learned in the handling of the first pandemic outbreak, if I could just refer to it as the original coronavirus and not the mutant strain, have those in some ways helped in handling this particular, mutant strain, recognizing it and acting fast against it? Like Dr. Parikh was saying, the British government was quite proactive in its actions once the mutant strain was discovered.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're great questions. I also wanted to say thank you for having me on your show. We're in a different position now than we were when the pandemic first began. We have a framework for understanding what's going on. We know so much more about this virus now, everything from its genetic code and how it's been changing, right the way through to the types of disease patterns that it causes. There's still a lot more to discover. So what I would say is, with this B117 strain, the new strain, I think we should take a deep breath and just reassure ourselves, although it looks as though there's something new and magical and important and significant, actually nothing's changed, except that we are in a better position now. So we're in a position to monitor, and there are so many scientific questions to be answered. one of the problems, you know, with having information accessed so quickly is that it produces very large reactions. And so we need to assess things over time.
Absolutely.
And to understand if there is a higher viral load, if there's more transmission, and so on. But as Professor Smith mentioned, you know, we now have some really powerful weapons, the vaccines. And these are being rolled out, and they're going to be rolled out effectively.
Yes.
And all the evidence so far suggests that the vaccines will continue to be effective, whether it's B117 or any other strain that we've encountered so far. So let's take a breath. Let's watch what's happening. Let's see if there's increased transmission and how it works and what the mechanisms are. But we have to stick to the basics, which is to contain the infection by the rules of hand washing, face masks, social distancing. Nothing's changed.
Absolutely. So the basics don't change at all. We are better equipped. We need to take a deep breath and not overreact, perhaps. You know, that's going to be reassuring. One of the reasons why we wanted to do this show is we wanted people at the front lines of handling, the data that's coming out of this entire new strain to speak to our viewers and tell them that there is actually no reason to panic. Dr. Sareen, the Indian government, the Indian Health Ministry has also said exactly that. There's no reason to panic. We are in a better position to handle things now, to perhaps preempt things now. But like Dr. Parikh said, Dr. Sareen, it would be very surprising if this strain wasn't here already. You know, to most people, it's a scary thing. You know, mutant strain sounds a little scary, but this is something that's already been taken into account, hasn't it?
Well, I would like to explain in very simple terms that a mutant is a survivor. When you have a virus and a body, both want to survive. If your immunity is strong, you will kill the virus, but virus doesn't want to die. It has to change its shape. So this virus came up, the strain came up from a guy who was immune compromised, and the virus stayed very long in that person. When the virus stayed very long, it changed its shape. Then it got transmitted to another person, and then it started increasing. So it is the survival of the fittest, and this is the normal process for any virus, like hepatitis C, on which I work, or B. Now, what is the problem with the virus? This virus, the mutant, has a change in the structure, so it can bind to the cell more strongly than the previous virus. So if you strongly bind, you will replicate, you will transmit faster. So this is the concern. Like by 11th of December, about 1200 cases were found in the UK. So why people are worried is that the virus has changed shape. But this is not the last change. The virus will keep changing as the time will come. So we need to be aware of this fact. So it is not that we can just put it under the carpet. We must be aware, be cautious, and therefore we have to answer 3 questions. One, will this virus cause more serious disease? We don't know. The labs are working, and maybe in 2 weeks. Will this virus be effectively controlled in transmission by the new vaccines? Most likely. Third, will our diagnosis be wrong? If the virus has changed, will we be able to diagnose? It's very unlikely, because the mutation is only one protein, the spike protein. But when you detect 3 genes. So it is unlikely that our diagnosis. So I think the diagnosis will be good. Our vaccines are most likely to be as effective, maybe in future less. And of course, we have to diagnose it and understand the disease process.
Okay, so those 3 questions you've answered for us, again, very reassuring. A, that, you know, it's unlikely that we won't be able to diagnose, and it's likely that the vaccines that have already been approved or are in the pipeline will be effective against this mutant strain as well. Before I go to Dr. Jaina and Dr. Krishan Kumar from New York, I want to tell our viewers about the other big worry that's been touched upon by some of our experts right now is whether this new strain will impact the COVID vaccine. Some of our experts touched upon that. They've provided a reassuring view on that. It's optimistic. Remember, only 6 countries so far have started vaccinating their populations. The vaccine in India is expected to be out in the next few weeks. Will these vaccines be able to fight off this mutation and the mutations that are expected to come ahead, or will there be more modifications to these vaccines required? Will there be repeat work necessary? Take a look at this report.
COVID vaccines roll out, a new virus mutation also rises. More than 24 lakh people across 6 countries have already been inoculated. Will the new strain impact them? Will the efficacies of vaccines that are being administered and developed be hit? The biggest worry for the world right now is whether the approved COVID vaccines be able to ward off the new variant of the novel coronavirus. BioNTech, which developed the vaccine together with the US pharmaceutical company Pfizer, is confident that its shot will work on the UK variant. The company's CEO, Uyghur Sahin, has claimed that it is highly likely that the immune response by its vaccine can also deal with the new virus variants. Sahin said that the proteins on the UK variant are 99% the same as on the prevailing strains, and therefore BioNTech has scientific confidence that its vaccines will be effective. And if the vaccine needed to be adjusted for the new variant, the company could do so in about 6 weeks. The Indian government too has said that there is no cause for concern or panic over mutated virus and that the new strain is unlikely to have an impact on the potential of emerging vaccines.
इस म्यूटेशन की वजह से जो हमारी ट्रीटमेंट गाइडलाइंस हैं उसमें भी कोई बदलाव नहीं आता। इस म्यूटेशन होने के बावजूद जो भी वैक्सीन अभी डेवलप हो रहे हैं, पर्टिकुलरली जो हमारे देश में डेवलप हो रहे हैं और जो बाहर जो विकसित हुए हैं, जितने भी हुए हैं लगभग, उनको अगर हम इस दृष्टि से देखें कि क्या इस म्यूटेशन से उनके ऊपर नेगेटिव प्रभाव पड़ेगा कि वो काम नहीं करेंगे, ऐसा नहीं है।
The COVID vaccines are the light at the end of the tunnel that the world needs. The mutation now lurks over it like a grim shadow. Bureau Report, India Today.
Dr. Ashok Jainer, I want to get you in on this. You know, the vaccine issue is another thing that people are quite anxious about. You know, the common citizen out there, has been waiting for the vaccine. There appears to be good news on the horizon. And now this mutant strain comes in. And the natural question that most people ask is, are we going to have to wait for a different vaccine? Or are these vaccines that are coming in going to be effective against this strain as well? Could you answer that for us, sir?
Yeah. Thanks for inviting me for this program. I have received my vaccine yesterday. My wife is receiving today. At the moment, there is no concern at all that this vaccine won't work against this strain. We should not have any anxiety at the moment. Vaccine is working. Vaccine will work. It may be possible in the future, 6 months later, 1 year later, some new strain come which may escape this vaccine.
Yeah.
That time we may have to upgrade our vaccine, which is not a difficult task, which is a very simple task. Mutation will continue to take place.
Yeah.
Similarly, we may have to upgrade vaccine. We do upgrade vaccine every year for influenza vaccine.
Yes, that's right.
I don't see any anxiety any person should have at the moment to vaccine with new strain. There's no cause of anxiety. I would also like to add, India is at advantage at the moment. There's no need to worry. In India, 40-50% population in urban area already immune.
Yes.
They have got infected, they are immune. Number two, in India, it has not penetrated into the rural sector. Rural sector is quite protected. So India at advantage, and in India, viral infection does not affect as much as bacterial infection. So I don't see any reason we should be panic.
Okay, so you're saying
at the moment.
So you're saying no reason to panic, and congratulations to you and your wife, sir, for getting the vaccine. That's great. Everyone, all of us are waiting for that vaccine as well. Dr. Krishan Kumar, what is your view on this? You know, it's a question that everybody is going to ask until there is absolute clarity. Like we've heard, these mutations are going to be expected to happen. This is not the first mutation. There will be more mutations ahead. So the simple question that I'm asking is, these vaccines that have currently been approved and are in the pipeline right now, can they go through without any modifications to meet even this emerging mutant strain, sir?
No, first of all, thank you so much for having me here on the talk show. I'll tell you one thing about myself. I did suffer from coronavirus. I was sick. I was 8 months ago. I developed the antibodies. In spite of all that, I took the vaccine. I took vaccine last week. It is so much protective. It's beyond imagination. We are waiting for the vaccine for so many days. You remember that there were the days when we used to develop vaccine over the period of 5 to 10 years. Now we got it at warp speed. We got the vaccine within 8 months. That vaccine is extremely, extremely effective. These mutations, they have been happening in the past for millions of years. That's how humans have been evolved on this earth. There's nothing to panic. We are there, we are going to fight it off, and we are doing it very well.
Okay.
So people should not be worried about the mutation. It will keep on happening. And you know that my colleague already told you, like flu. Flu vaccine is only effective 20-30% of the time, but it does protect a lot of the population. Likewise, coronavirus. It will keep on mutating and we will keep fighting. Basic principle stays the same. Good hand hygiene, masking, social distancing, immunize as many people as you can.
Absolutely.
I remember when I was a child, about 60 years back, I developed smallpox. That disease is gone now because everybody got immunized against smallpox. Likewise,
I can't tell you how reassuring it is to hear a lineup of amazing doctors say there's nothing to worry about, everything is going to be okay. I think all of my viewers are going to agree with me when they have a lineup of 6 doctors from across the world saying don't panic, everything's going to be okay. Dr. Parekh, here in India, we've seen how things have gone. There's a lot of vaccine activity happening here as well. Today we had those pictures of the logistics machinery for those vaccines kicking into action in preparation for the vaccines to be delivered. Is it going to go smoothly with this new mutant strain as well?
Well, Shiv, of course, a pleasure to be with you. But, past experience of the last 200 years from the time of Edward Jenner tells us that nothing ever goes very smoothly. There are going to be bumps. And I am as thrilled as you are by the transcontinental optimism that we have on this panel, but I do have some concerns. And if you have a minute, maybe I could explain.
Please.
First of all vaccines are not the same. So some vaccines, like the mRNA vaccine, most notably the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccine, they are constructed on a platform which allows the flexibility for tweaking a bit here and there when mutants come up. But that doesn't necessarily apply to the adenovirus or, the other vectors that are in use. The second thing is that a lot depends on the nature of the mutation. Just as all vaccines are not equal, all mutations are not equal. I believe there have been about 20 deletions detected so far, unless not to have been detected even as we are speaking. And what are of concern are the changes that have occurred in the dreaded S protein or the spike protein, which theoretically would grant greater accessibility into the immune system. So a lot depends on whether the vaccine addresses that specific mutation as opposed to addressing mutations in general, as happens with the annual flu vaccine.
Right.
And the third thing, if we could just look back, look retrospectively, with the influenza pandemic, which came in 3 waves, the second wave with the mutation attacked people mostly in their 20s, from 20 to 40, the working population, which wasn't the case with the first pandemic. That resulted in changes we see till today. More men were affected then, as are today, created the space for women to join the workforce, to get the right to vote, to women's emancipation. A lot of other things happened. But I would like to share the concern that, everything is not rosy. Let us not just hope that the vaccine will miraculously adapt itself to the virus. Unfortunately, the virus has far greater adaptability than us and the vaccine.
Very important point. Professor Smith, would you like to address that point that there are going to be concerns? It's not going to be a rosy path. I don't think anybody thinks that. But, the fact that one wonders if the vaccines themselves, the research that's going into the vaccines, Professor Smith, takes into account these mutations and further mutations which could be of a much more serious nature, as Dr. Parekh mentioned.
Well, of course, the vaccines that have been produced so far and which are starting to be rolled out were based upon the genome sequence of the virus very early in the pandemic. And changes will occur. And there is one mutation in this new strain, which is around the receptor binding site of the spike protein. And so that does affect how the virus binds to cells, and that might affect how antibodies against that particular part of the protein will bind to it. But when you immunize with the whole spike protein, you induce a polyclonal antibody response against multiple parts of that protein. And so it's very unlikely that a single amino acid change is going to affect the ability of the vaccine to neutralize the virus. Of course, that will have to be tested experimentally, and the extent to which that is true will be determined. And then, of course, if in the future there is a need to modify the vaccine, well, of course, that can be done and they can be rolled out. But although this type of virus, the coronaviruses, do mutate, we should remember that they mutate much more slowly than other RNA viruses like influenza, like hepatitis C, or like HIV. So although they will mutate, they do it more slowly. And therefore, the changes are not going to be so radical.
Right.
So I think my message is the same as many of your other experts on this program, that there is no need to panic at the moment. Do not be greatly concerned, but continue to think and act carefully. Deal with this new strain in exactly the same way that you're dealing with the current strains. In other words, you wear face masks, you maintain social distancing, you hand wash as frequently as you can. And if every Indian citizen does that, they will help control this pandemic, reduce the spread, and save lives. So that's the message. Continue to do what you're already doing well, and the number of cases will reduce.
No, I'm glad you mentioned that, because it's quite visible here in India, and I'm sure it's visible elsewhere in the world as well, that there is a level of complacency that is set in. There's a comfort factor that's set in. People are obviously understandably impatient, for things to return to normal. Dr. Sareen, here in India, we've seen states like Maharashtra and Karnataka go into night curfew mode. Those restrictions have started to come back. Do you foresee, sir, more serious restrictions coming in to the level of a possible, partial lockdown here and there as a result of these mutations, the current one and possibly ones coming in the future?
Well, I think this is a wise step, at least in the big metropolitan cities where there is a likelihood of people coming from overseas. It's not necessary. People are only coming from UK, from South Africa, from other countries, can also have a similar variant coming in, or a guy from UK goes to another country and comes to India. So I think for some time, at least, restrictions are required. We need to have a very strong contact tracing of people who have come. And 3 or 4 categories of patients also, subjects should also be identified. All those who have been said to have reinfection, or those where the virus has stayed for long, or like, long COVID cases, or readmission of the hospital. So we need to be cautious for a group of people that we may have an Indian variant, we may have a variant, because this is a natural process of the virus to evolve. So one is to be cautious and not to ignore our basic needs. But second part, I want to say about the vaccine, which other experts have said, for simplicity. First, when the virus is coming to your body as a patient, you make antibody against the whole virus. But when a vaccine is given, it is a virus mimic. A small protein or a small gene of virus is put into your body. Body thinks it is the virus and it makes proteins against that. That is your antibody.
Right.
But before protein is made, that viral small part is picked up by T cell, T as in Tata, which is your immune sensor. It gives a message to B as in Bombay, B cell. Now, why is it important to understand that T cell has a memory for long? So, therefore, anytime the virus comes, your T cell will sense it, send it to B cell, you make your antibody. Therefore, remember to take 2 dosages. If you have first dose and say, I am okay, you will create a panic. Please remember to take 2 dosages.
I hope
now,
my viewers are listening.
Everybody has taken 2 dosages in the country. 80%, 70% have taken. Now, what will virus do? Virus has to survive. Now, then after a year or two, when the population is done, then we develop what is known as virus vaccine escape mutant. So you have given the vaccine, but he can get infected. Now, vaccine escape mutants is our next future worry, which can occur next year or so. But therefore, I think our caution, our scientific knowledge has to remain. First, this initial vaccination, please do not be afraid, but to take 2 shots, not 1. If you have taken 2 shots, your cells, your immune system has enough memory for a long time. Second infection, it can handle it. But yes, after a while, once the virus is there, we may have problems. Please also remember that antibodies may not last for too long. But that doesn't mean, don't get afraid. So all those who have got vaccination, disease in the past should also get a vaccine. Do not think that my antibodies have gone. You may have good antibodies, you may not have. Hence, those who have got infection in the past also should, if available, on priority, get their vaccination.
You know,
please do remember, as earlier said by other experts, other experts, that we have to be cautious for next few years. This virus will mutate, it will change. There is no need to panic, but no possibility of complacency. Be alert, be cautious, and be vigilant about it. And also all the other 3: mask, hand washing, and distance.
No panic, but no complacency is an excellent general rule to go by. Dr. Sanjeev Kumar, given everything that we know so far and what we've experienced over the last 10, 11 months, are we better prepared? And when I say we, I mean, all of the health organizations and those who are, looking for these mutations, looking for places where clusters are forming. Are we better prepared now to prevent the need for another, damaging lockdown, even if it's a partial one?
We're certainly better prepared to understand what's going on. And we're certainly better prepared to manage cases of infection, including severe cases. We're certainly better prepared to interpret much of the science that is coming out. So, for example, to answer the question about whether the vaccine would work, it can quickly be tested if antibodies produced by people who have been vaccinated still work against the new mutant strain. That can be done in a couple of weeks. So there are tools now that are really available. But I would like to emphasize that whatever tools we have at any level, whether it's in the lab or whether it's in the clinic or whether it's for the, in public health, for example, the application of those tools and the success of that application depends on many factors. It also depends on how the public responds to public health messaging. It depends on social structures, and it depends on how, for example, a country is arranged, whether it is crowded or whether it is spread out, and so on. So the question you ask about whether there is a risk of a further lockdown, whether there is a risk of more stringent measures that may need to come in, the answer is it really is very much a case-by-case and a step-by-step situation. My final comment would be, we must be prepared always to react fast and to react aggressively in control measures. One of the problems that I think we have faced in the United Kingdom, and they are not happy lessons for the rest of the world, is that we have always dealt with things here too little and too late, in my opinion. And I think that lesson should be, should be maintained throughout. Because if you look at countries that have successfully controlled the infection, they've been very aggressive and they've been very quick off the mark.
Dr. Parikh, is there a need for India to be more aggressive than it already is being, given everything we know about this mutant strain? Like you said, you'd be astonished if this strain wasn't already in India. Do you think enough is being done to, as far as restrictions are concerned?
Yes and no, Shiv. I think the question implied that a lot more needs to be done, and I entirely agree with you. We certainly need to ramp up our testing. This is something, as you're well aware, we've been talking about since the month of March.
Yeah.
Our testing is good, but much more needs to be done. And Shiv, as you're aware, when we wrote our book on the coronavirus in March, we devoted 5 pages to mutation,
correct,
emphasizing how important the situation that might be. And we're seeing that playing out today. So there's a lot more we need to do. But there is a second thing I think we need to be proactive about, and that is not to hesitate for heading into a lockdown if required, not to hesitate because the optics are not right. We need to do what is necessary. I mean, South Korea, if you pardon me, did a remarkable job right from the beginning. They're a model to the world, but they're facing a crisis today.
Yeah.
So the virus has a plan of its own, way ahead of our plan. And we always need to do more than what we are doing, no matter how effective it is.
This is an interesting point. In the context of the vaccines coming in and this new strain and the certainty that there will be more strains, Dr. Jaina, if I could bring you in on that, there is a reluctance, across countries, and I imagine all countries share this. There is a reluctance to go back into any kind of a lockdown. Given the damaging effects of the lockdown that has already happened in the world, Dr. Jaina, do you think this reluctance is going to be a problem?
I don't think so. Lockdown is a kind of time buying when you have to prepare yourself. At the moment, we are quite prepared. We know how to diagnose. We know how to treat. We know how to break down the transmissions. So lockdown is a last resort because it does affect economy very badly.
Yeah.
At the moment, I personally believe India is very well prepared. Number one, 30-40% already have got immune, maybe more than 30-40% population. Number two, treatment has become so nice at the moment. Since this recovery trial came, India is a country which has implemented this treatment so effectively. Every doctor is using rightly dose at the right time, steroid. It's working like a magic. Mortality is so low in India if you compare from the Western world.
Yeah.
Transmission has gone down. Yes, we have to be cautious that it won't continue like that. It may come again in 2021. That we have to be cautious, we have to be watchful, we have to monitor. But I think that lockdown, in my book, at the moment, we should not go for lockdown.
Okay.
Keep it as a last resort.
Okay, so lockdown is only the last resort. I'm down to the last couple of minutes on my show, but so I'd like to ask Professor Smith. Professor Smith, my apologies for asking this so simplistically, but this is a year that has truly unified us all on this planet, and a lot of people are going to be wondering whether the new year, that's 2021, is going to be the year that we conquer the coronavirus. Or is it going to stretch on beyond 2021 as well? What's your view? A simple answer on that. I know it's not a simple question, but we'd love to know what you think.
Well, I'd like to finish. Thank you for the opportunity on a positive note, because I do think that 2021 is going to be the year when we really start to get to grip with this pandemic. And it's going to be done by vaccination and by public health control measures. So I really feel that by this time next year, things will be very different. This virus will not have gone away completely, and there will be a need to continue to have surveillance and vaccination in the future. But in terms of the pandemic, as we know it now, things will be much, much better, even in 6 months' time. I'm very confident of that. And you in India should be very confident too. You have many really excellent biomedical scientists in your National Institute for Virology in Pune and the great biological research institutes in Bangalore and Delhi. You have a great scientific basis and excellent medical structure to control this epidemic. And with the help of your population, by adopting the simple procedures of masks, distancing and hand washing, I'm sure you'll overcome it. And I wish you the best in that endeavor.
Thank you very much for that. Dr. Sareen, last word to you then. In 6 months, things will be very different, if not, this time next year. Would you share that assessment?
Well, we hope the luck angels are with us, but I want to give a word of caution that first, anybody who has come from UK or from any other country and has been in contact, please volunteer. There is a public responsibility that you keep your neighbors, your city, your town in good shape. Please volunteer. Why is it important? If one is missed, one person is missed and he transmits and the reproduction number is about 1.7, you can have another wave coming in 3 months. It won't come tomorrow. It takes time for that to spread. So please, it's a public responsibility, not government responsibility alone. That's one message. And second, we need to be sure that our antigen testing is changed to RT-PCR, because antigen is against the spike protein. And RT-PCR is against multiple genes. Therefore, the country needs to ramp up. With all that having done, you can only be safe if your neighbor is safe, your friend is safe. So please wear the mask. Don't think you are safe as long as they are unsafe. Therefore, give them the mask. All of us should say no entry without a mask, no talking, no eating together. All that, still you can enjoy the new year and all the comforts of good pleasure, but don't expose and don't infect.
Especially in festive season. And I'd like to wish all of my guests today a very happy and safe holiday season. We're good. Of course, I'm going to be working through the holidays. I hope some of you get some time off as well to enjoy the holidays. But hopefully good news on the horizon. I'm going to go away with the words of Professor Smith, who said in 6 months' time things will be very different. Lots of precautions to be taken. We can't assume the best. We've got to be prepared for the worst and hope it doesn't actually arrive. Been a pleasure. Thank you so much to all of you doctors for being with me here on the Newstrack. You've answered so many of our questions, and I'm sure our viewers very much value that. So thank you very much for that. And coming up next here on Newstrack, after 28 years, nearly 3 decades, the killers of Sister Abhaya, who was murdered in 1992, have been sentenced to life in prison. Imagine that, justice delivered 3 decades later. 28 years ago, Sister Abhaya was hit on the head with an axe and thrown into a well after she saw a priest and another nun in a compromising position at a convent in Kerala. Today, her killers, Father Thomas Kottur and Sister Sefi, were sentenced to life in prison. The investigation into Sister Abhaya's death is by far one of the longest-running murder investigations in the country. It was first said to be suicide and then murder. Now, there finally, hopefully, will be closure.
Justice after 28 years. Catholic priest Father Thomas Kottur and Sister Sefi sentenced to life for murdering Sister Abhaya in 1992. The nun was found dead in a well in St. Pius Convent in Kottayam. A CBI court also found the duo guilty of tampering with the evidence.
When she was taken out, no evidence was available to just conclude that it was a murder or a suicide, homicide or suicide. The situation is that, see, the first, the local police, they came to a conclusion that it was a clear case of suicide.
ഒരുപാട് ഭീഷണികളും പ്രലോഭനങ്ങളും എല്ലാം പീഡനങ്ങളും എല്ലാം അനുഭവിച്ചു. അതിനെല്ലാം അതിജീവിക്കാൻ കഴിഞ്ഞു. ഇതൊരു ദൈവത്തിൻ്റെ നിയോഗമായിട്ടാണ് നടപ്പിലാക്കിയിരിക്കുന്നത്. ജനങ്ങൾക്ക് കോടതിയോടുള്ള ഒരു ബഹുമാനം 3 പതിറ്റാണ്ട് കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ട് കേസ് അട്ടിമറിച്ചിട്ടും കോടതിക്ക് മുമ്പിൽ എല്ലാ തെളിവുകളും വന്നു.
Sister Abhaya died when one early morning in March 1992, she had walked in on Father Kottur and Sister Sefi and found them in a compromising position near the kitchen of their convent. The prosecution had proved in court that while the priest overpowered and gagged Sister Abhaya, the nun had used an axe to repeatedly strike her on the head. Sister Abhaya's bleeding body was dumped in a well near the church. Initially, there was no headway in the case, with the Kerala Crime Branch probe calling it a suicide. With the prestige of the church involved, there were powerful factors at play, and a CBI probe was ordered to establish the truth in the matter. Was it a suicide or was it murder? A high-ranking CBI official, Verghese P. Thomas, even quit the probe, citing pressure. A fresh team of CBI later confirmed homicide.
ചെയ്ത ഇൻവെസ്റ്റിഗേഷൻ ശുഭപര്യവസായിയായി അവസാനിച്ചതിൽ എനിക്ക് സന്തോഷമുണ്ട്. പ്രതികൾക്ക് ശിക്ഷ കിട്ടാതിരിക്കാൻ നിവർത്തിയില്ല. കേസ് വിചാരണ കുറ്റവാളിയാണെന്ന് തെളിഞ്ഞാൽ കോടതിക്ക് ശിക്ഷിക്കാതിരിക്കാൻ തരമില്ല. അപ്പോൾ അങ്ങനെ ശിക്ഷയ്ക്ക് അർഹനാണെന്ന് കോടതിക്ക് ബോധ്യം വന്നതുകൊണ്ട് ന്യായമായ ശിക്ഷ കോടതി കൊടുത്തു എന്നുള്ളതിൽ എനിക്ക് സംതൃപ്തിയുണ്ട്.
The case dragged on for 28 years and there were many a twist and turn before the verdict was finally delivered.
Justice delayed is justice denied. This is a very common proverb used in the judicial context of India. Having said this, the 28-year-old long legal battle in Sister Abhaya murder case will go down in the history as a benchmark of the whole judicial system in the country. Thanks to the persistence of some lawyers, some investigating agents, and also some of the judges at the lower tiers of the courts in the country. With camera representing Guraj Shekharan, Gopi Krishnan, Thiruvananthapuram for India Today.
Keep watching India Today, News Today with Rajdeep coming up next.